So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a unique video discussion related to the moon. And this is not like some technique that I'm trying to explain here. This is more of understanding the concept of not the whole concept of moon, a particular part of the moon, you know, which we call waxing and waning. And waxing and waning also creates these 16 tithis, you know, these blocks within a month that have different things that are happening. And what I want to discuss here is that, see, there is a concept of waxing and waning. And in the classics, they discuss how waning moon, it's this malefic moon. It's malefic, meaning it's harmful, can be dangerous. Waxing moon is more benevolent. Waxing moon is something that is there to, kind of protect you. So why this concept, comes into play? And the reason is quite simple. We have to understand one thing is that moon, which is moon itself, which is like the quantified accumulation of all our karmas that are stored in it. And then you have sun, this pure, God in a way. It's a godly entity that is worshipped in pretty much every and all culture. And if you always notice, moon is always kind of associated with magic, night, like especially in horror movies, they're not going to show a rising sun, to bring fear into you. What do they show? To bring fear into us when we're watching horror movies, like these clouds clearing in front of a full moon night. So moon naturally itself, it has this mystical, dark theme about it. But what we need to understand is this: when something is waning, it shows that, especially astrologically, this person becomes more of an introvert. And when it's waxing, this person's out there in the world. And this is why they connect waxing moon with fame, with notoriety. Where waning moon, especially a dark moon, is connected with the person who is just, within this wormhole of a small cage, you can say in a way. But why it is seen that way is because, now to quickly just tell you why it's occurring on scientific level, obviously we know that the phases of the moon, it mainly is dependent upon our perspective from where we're sitting and looking at the moon, and then going around where the waxing, starts to take over, or the waning starts to take over from this side. Fine, we get that. But from our perspective, we are witnessing the shadow. We're witnessing the shadow side of the moon. And it is this shadow from the perspective of the earth, because earth is that material plane. Okay, earth is that bhuloka. So that shadow that we witness takes over this material, spell upon us. This is why you're here, then this is why you get stuck. Because you are witnessing either the increase of the shadow upon the moon, or you're witnessing the decrease of shadow upon the moon. On a spiritual perspective, you can say that, oh, it is that material shadow of the earth upon the moon. It's not the literal shadow of the earth upon the moon. It is the literal shadow, meaning we're witnessing the shadow. And so the light is pure of the sun. We're trying to go towards the sun. But the shadow that has taken over, that we are witnessing through our eyes from this material plane. That's why we get stuck into the perspective of pursuing either material things and fighting against material things and trying to go towards more spirituality. And so this is what I'm trying to explain, which, I kind of just didn't mention in the original video, which had people confused. So I'm just editing this in the middle so you understand that it is the spiritual perspective of the shadow side of the moon, becoming this witness from this material plane called Earth. So the material concept increases from our perspective, and that's what affects our psyche. Because moon is this soma, right? It's this elixir. And so soma is something that gets you drunk, that gets you either enlightened or gets you just the highest of the high. And that soma keeps decreasing as we are witnessing our movement. So hopefully this helped. Let's continue with the original video. But and especially if you remember my discussion I once made about middle nakshatras, and I said moon is connected with wealth because it controls the middle of all the Artha nakshatra. Artha meaning the sign of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, which are related to work. And through work, what do we get? We get tokens. We get, ability to accumulate things. But the actual material plane is this. It's the earth. It is the material plane. It is this bhuloka is and known as material plane because it has materials on it. It's that simple. There's no like judgment on it that, oh, it's very materialistic. No, it is supposed to be. If you want to survive, you need the materials. Whether it's food, shelter, clothing, fire, okay, blanket, whatever it is that material thing. But because the shadow of Earth is coming upon the moon, this is where our psyche gets stuck into this realm of materialism. And the more the shadow is coming upon the moon, the more that materialistic shadow is coming. Even with the waxing moon too, you got to remember, waxing moon is not spared from this particular concept, because in waxing moon, shadow is being removed. Okay, fine, great, it's being removed. But it's not fully removed. It's probably removed for 2 minutes and 20 seconds every time moon is completely full. After that, the shadow comes back. And this is where we see that on one end, a person is being trapped by the shadow, trapped by the materialism. On the other hand, the soul is trying to burst. That purity of soul, which is connected with the sun, soul, SOL, which represents the soul. And this is why soul is connected to the sun, because it's pure. It's not bound by these material things. It's not trying to escape. This is why in spirituality, they have always said, oh, you need to ascend up. We always talk about ascensions, right? Which means when something is stuck to something and that thing goes up, most of the time you will see whatever is attached to it will fall down. But if something is descending and a blanket is right over something which is descending, well, the blanket will always be on top of it, no matter how deep it descends. So once we understand this concept of waxing and ascending and waning and descending, this is where literally the core of spirituality comes in. The spirituality that we seek is actually connected astronomically. Now, of course, you will see like, well, okay, there are many people who are spiritual and they have a waning moon or dark moon. Okay, fine. But here's the thing. And again, this is where, especially after I've done my research on the nakshatras in the past year, which hopefully you guys are enjoying it, I really understood that before you speak, you gotta do the research. You can't just put percentage on things. Oh, well, this many percentage of people are like this. Okay, well, have you done any actual studies, any surveys? So you can't say that. So even if somebody is extremely spiritual, and yet the moon has a lot of shadow of Earth upon itself, perhaps they have this, let's say, one thing, that blanket given by their guru or blanket given by their grandmother, or they have this particular spiritual book that they're just attached to. Come hell or high water, they will not let go of that. Somebody could be very spiritual, yet they love sweets. They want to have sweets. They'll meditate all day. They'll be celibate. But yeah, they got to have the sweet. It's just something that. So materialism doesn't mean that, okay, well, it has to be some money in the bank account. Materialism could come in a form of anything. It doesn't have to be money, this token. That's more of a side thing. You can have the materialistic, uh, you know, uh, craving for love, lust, food, seeking some knowledge, because knowledge is also material, because only because you're here, you're learning something like mathematics or history or sociology. And that's not even intelligence, that's just knowledge. Just because you have accumulated on knowledge, it doesn't, you're no closer to being intelligent and no closer to being enlightened. But the reason why I am giving this concept is to show this waxing and waning, how truly is a governing factor in that word spirituality. Then there's these 16 tithis. Like, so in a month, you will have sun and moon at a certain distance where it create these 16 divisions. In a way, you can say these are like 16 zodiac signs or nakshatras or whatever you want to call it. There's just 16 divisions known as tithis. And each tithi has a different meaning. But of course, when you study the classics and you just read them, you're like, okay, they're all contradicting each other. One tithi will say this person will be helped by the king, will be very honorable, will be this. Then the other tithi will say this person may suffer from this, may suffer from that. And then when you look at certain horoscopes, and you're like, okay, this person has the exact same tithi, and yet they weren't honored by the government. They were actually, you know, arrested because of by the government, by the law, because they murdered people. And this is something perhaps we're not giving those true knowledge of the tithis that is really out there, or somebody just didn't translate it well. And this is another focus of my research for at least a year or two. I want to study each tithi on a worldview. Like this particular tithi, which is happening, what events are happening, what major things that have happened, not just in daily life, but in like the life of the world, whether it's economics, politics, entertainment, medicine. So once you kind of study these things, that's where I want to be like, okay, when I see the repetition, see, it's about a repetition. Like in my nakshatra book, you will see how many times I've observed the moon going through the same nakshatra over the course of a year and a half. So unless we see those repeated themes happen in those same tithi that a moon comes into every month, then we can say, okay, this is what this means. But of course, I'm digressing from that main subject, although it's not digressing. I mean, I'm just saying that the tithi, understanding of tithi, which is part of Vedic astrology, I just don't think it has been explained well enough. And it is perhaps written in code so we don't understand it. But this is where my observation needs to go. But the main thing you want to understand is that the concept of waxing and waning comes because of that emergence of spirituality, the meaning of spirituality. And even if you look at the sun, see, if you study Mercury, planet Mercury, Mercury is not dealing with any shadows upon itself. It is just very close to the sun, and we know that. It's just close to the sun. And this is why you see, okay, fine, it's combust. But still, a combust Mercury makes a person intelligent. They get their PhD, their master's degree, they're doing well. Okay, it's combust. It's because it is close to the sun. Of course, that's going to happen. If Mercury is going to exist where it exists, it is going to have this particular theme playing out. But on the other hand, moon was completely full at one point. If you study the old stories, moon was full, but it's because he fell in love with one of the 27 wives and married the 27 wives, but only paid attention to one, and then was cursed by the father of those wives, that he started waxing and waning. It's kind of like the transformation of Smeagol to Gollum in Lord of the Rings. How's this plain simple farmer in Shire got obsessed with this one ring, and boom, it just took him into that dark, waning, side of the world. And on the other hand, sun is completely pure. Sun is very clockwise. It comes in, it goes. It's not waning. It's not waxing. Doesn't have any dealings with materiality, wealth. This is why they have always said, sun burns our karma. Always ascend towards the light, right? Light the sun. Now, you must be thinking, well, during eclipse, sun itself is gone. Yes, and this is why the sages, the highly intellectual people have said, okay, during eclipse, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this activity. Why? Because the light that the soul is really trying to merge into and to have its karma burn off as it gets closer to the sun, so it can be free, well, it's no longer there. Sun is no longer there to show you light, neither to burn your karmas. And so this is why on those particular day, don't perform certain things, because those karmas may get stuck, may have, I'm just giving an analogy there, but there are certain things you don't do, you're not supposed to do, or you should do, and they're simply based on these intellectual sages who understood this activity during this time when the sun is no longer there, and it's the shadow of the earth and the moon that creating this eclipse. It should be avoided because it may do this, or this should be done because this will enhance something more positive. But sun is the king. It always comes on time, leaves on time. This is why sun is known as punctuality. Sun is very punctual. Actually, if you look at it, every planet is punctual except moon. Moon is the one, even though it's punctual, it'll show only half itself. It's like somebody's coming to work half drunk. Okay, you came to work, great, you showed up on time, but what good are you right now? You're drunk. You can't do this work. It's like a truck driver showing up to work half drunk or half asleep, having a hangover. Only rarely will the moon come out like fully, aware and fully active and dressed and nice and neat and clean to do the work. Every other planet is going timely, not waxing, not waning, but it is the moon that does this. And this is why it's very essential to understand this waxing waning concept, so it'll tell you why certain things are happening. Now, like I said, with planets influencing a waning moon will really impact the actions of that person with the waning moon. Or the waxing moon, that person that is trying to do something and show something, yet still caught up by the shadow and receiving other planets, again, they get stuck too. But one thing you will notice with people with bright moon is that when they're fixated on their work, on certain karma, the last thing they're thinking of that, okay, I need to become a millionaire and billionaire, and that's the only reason why I'm doing it. No, they said, I want to do this. That's it. That's my thing. I'm just here to do this. This is what's going to give me the light. Money comes in, okay, fine. It's just the side thing. It's coming in. Great. Okay. While on the other hand, one person would be trying to achieve something because, hey, if I can get the fame, then and become famous and I can have all of this stuff. Great. I'll work towards that. So it's like two different spectrum, very similar, but yeah, one is shadow is going upon, and the other shadow is coming off. So try understanding. And the reason why I made this is because, I'm doing my moons series, and many of you have asked about uh, regarding the waxing and waning concept of the moon. What is it? Why is it? So this is why it is, but this is a conversation that can go on for next 2 hours, and we still may not get to the actual bottom of, uh, you know, why moon and what effect, because that is really very subjective from chart to chart. All right. So anyway, guys, this is my analysis of understanding the moon and its waxing and waning phases. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below so you don't miss these type of videos. And if you want to know where your moon is placed, what nakshatra it's in, meaning which wife it has married, and all your astrological details, for that, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, consultations, a link to my academy, Vedic Astrology Academy, where I teach you everything related to astrology. All right. Bye-bye.